Gonna start recording. Okay. Hello, Sharon.
Hello.
So thank you so much for joining me in this journey of podcasting. Today we're going to be talking about communication. And in your case, what I noticed with you is that you have incredible empathy and intention and clarity in your communication. And today I'd like to explore that a little bit, the active listening skills that you have as well. So when I thought of you, I thought, begin with the heart and everything else will be okay.
Mm. Wow.
So my question is that when you speak, I always feel your heart. You have a knack for creating safety in conversation. Is that intentional, or is that something that you always possessed, just
Yeah.
naturally?
Thank you for asking that question. You gave me the opportunity to really reflect on how I got to this place where people experience that, right? Because not until someone tells me, they're like, oh, is that what you're experiencing? And it really made me think about how did I get to that place? How did that come out of me? And I reflected back to my childhood. And when I think about it, it started with my parents.
Mhm,
We had to eat at the dinner table. We had to. I remember one day my dad goes, it's time to eat. I can't eat. I have studying to do. Da, da, da. I can't. You're just going to have to go on without me. No, 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 no. This is a requirement in our family that we eat together.
mhm,
And when I reflect on that, I understand it was intentional.
mhm,
That was the place where we had conversation. That was the place where my parents listened. Mm.
mhm,
They posed questions and they just listened because they wanted to know what was going on in our lives. They wanted to provide support. They weren't intentional about naming what they were doing. But when I
mhm.
reflect back now, they were modeling listening.
Wow.
They were modeling it for me. And so I guess until you pose the question, like, how did you learn these skills? They were being played out at the dinner table every single night. And it was
Wow.
mandatory. And they did that because that was their opportunity to provide support, to guide
Mm.
us, to grow us, to develop us. So I guess without even knowing it, it had a positive impact on me, and it just naturally became something that I did for others. But
Mm.
I didn't think about it until you posed the question.
Wow. Thank you. Thank you for that. And so these conversations, there's another thing I noticed that here in the Western world, we call dialogue a conversation between two people. But the ancient definition is free flow of meaning. Log is meaning, logos meaning, right? And or
Mm-hmm.
word, right?
Yeah.
And dia is flow. So it's free flow of meaning. So when speaking with you, I feel that there's a free flow of meaning because there's no judgment.
Mm.
There's
Mm-hmm.
no judgment. There's
Yeah.
no defenses, no walls.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sometimes you look at someone and you can tell that there's thoughts going on while you're speaking to them,
Mhm.
and you feel the judgment, and you
Yeah.
feel um almost as though in every interaction there's an expectation, it seems, right?
Mhm.
But when I'm speaking with you, there's no expectation. You're just present.
Yeah. Yeah.
So how did that what the is that something that's intentional? My word again is intentional. My word this year is intention, and to be intentional. So maybe it may come up several times because I find you
Mhm.
to be very intentional. So
Mhm.
is that intentional, that you want to provide space for a free flow of
Mhm. Mhm.
dialogue? Is that something?
Yeah, I think it also came from my career, right? My background. So I started out, in human resources I was an HR person. So I did lots of interviews.
Mhm,
Right. So I guess just that training and maybe just, you get trained on how to do interviews, but then of course, over time, like anything else, you find your own rhythm in your own way. And I
mhm,
guess over time, it's really important when you have a job description, right? You know what you're looking for, but I have to listen for it. I have
mhm,
to make sure that I pose the right questions to see if there's a match.
mhm,
And so, in order to do that, I have to be the listener and they have to be the speaker because I need to hear from them. And
mm,
so, and then being intentional, I guess, very beginning of your career, you have a list of interview questions that you're always using. And then as time goes on, just like anything else, you refine your practice. You know
right, right, right.
you know what questions don't work.
Mhm,
You know what it looks like if you pause. It gives people an opportunity to reflect and go deeper in responding to that question. If I keep jumping in with questions, it's shallow. I don't get enough meat. So I think you learn that, like until by you posing that question, it made me think, well, how did I get to what you're saying that I do, right? Because it's nice to hear it, right? You don't even know you're doing it. How did I get there? And I think it's just like trial and error. Like my career provided the opportunity that I had to listen. And
mhm,
over time, I figured out what were the right questions, what was the right amount of time for pausing. Um, this is really critical because I've listened many times and didn't hear. Mm,
mm,
because I have other thoughts going on in my head or I'm making judgment. And then when it's time to make a decision, I can't.
mm.
I wasn't listening. And
Right.
so when you don't get the results you want to get, right? So I think reflection has been also a part of my process. The very beginning, I'm not listening really well because I don't know if they're the right candidate or not because I couldn't focus on listening. What do I need to do differently? So I think um, there's no way I could have grown this skill if I didn't reflect or make mistakes, right? So I made mistakes by like zoning out or like, what are they talking about? More so than saying, what do I need to do differently to pull it out of them? I need to listen more. I need to clear the space. I think one of the biggest things I've learned is, I mean, I'm human, right? Sometimes I have bad days and I have to go into this listening conversation with a client, so now I'm a coach, right? And
Mhm,
so the expectation is if I'm the coach, I'm there to listen to you, to support you in moving to the next step. And so I have to center myself, right? Because I am human. I have bad days, difficult days. Sometimes I get off a call not having to do with coaching and it was a difficult call and my head is spinning, around it. But then I have to center myself. I have to say, okay, getting ready to move into another space to support someone else. So you have to get rid of that. And I think it's not easy. I don't want to suggest that this is something that's easy or it comes natural, but it does come over time. And I think the key is reflecting on knowing what you need to do for yourself, whether it's, what I'm wearing or where I'm sitting or what distractions do I move out or do I need to just run downstairs and take a deep breath real quick? Like maybe I need to switch my space, quickly just to take a deep breath and pause. Am I hungry? Maybe I need to make sure I eat. Like really making sure I'm taking care of me. Because if I'm not taking care of me, I'm not taking care of others. And I know when I don't take care of me, I'm not supporting that client well. And it happens, because I'm human.
mm.
But I think it's a constant reflection of centering yourself, making sure you're taking care of you so then you can be available to them.
Wow.
It's a constant dance.
Mm, wow. I love that. When as you were speaking, I thought of Jim Rohn in the book,
Mm.
um, I have it here, Think and Grow Rich. He
Mm.
writes that don't wish that the circumstances were better. Wish that you were better,
Mhm.
right?
Mm.
And so what I see, what I'm hearing is that one, you come from a position of making yourself better. You're self-reflecting to make
Yeah.
yourself better, a better listener. Uh, and two, you think of self care. as critical and crucial to
Mhm.
being able to be present for others. That's amazing.
Mhm.
That's amazing. And that's work. That's work.
It is.
And work in two ways. One, there's work in getting to the point where you are aware of it, that you're cognizant that, listen, I need to um, be aware of and self-reflect on where I am
Mhm.
and where I want to arrive. Because it's like MapQuest or where you want to you can't get to a place until you acknowledge where you are. You have to know where you are first. And many times we don't progress in life in the way we would like is because we're not honest about where we are. We don't do an honest self-assessment and an honest self-audit. Where
Yeah.
am I now?
Yes. Yes. And I also think too, you become a better listener when you experience people who are not good listeners for you.
Mhm.
Right. So when I think about my journey, even like as a woman of color, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
When I was in college, I went to a predominantly non people of color school,
Mhm.
and I was an RA. I was a resident assistant. There were two of us that were of color on my floor, and here I am there to lead and to listen and to support a whole floor of students, mostly juniors. I was a sophomore, mostly juniors and seniors, and I had like one or two freshmen. So here I am, woman of color, like, still lower classmen, and I am here to support you. But in order for me to support you, I have to understand you. And there's nothing about most of the residents that we had commonality. I
Wow.
went to school in New England, and I'm from New York. And so even just that whole piece, right? So color, just nationality, just a lot of difference. And the first year was really hard. When I think back, that also was a grounding point for me, and it began to shift over time as I grew, because as an RA, you're always, everyone, people have problems. I'm locked out of my room. I need help with this. Someone is crying because, they've lost a parent or their roommate's giving them a hard time. And over time, they start coming to you, and you're there to listen and help.
Mm.
And what it showed me was, although I thought there was so much that was different about us, over time, I realized that we all come with the same needs: to be heard, to be understood, to not be judged, needing support. And not until you're posing these questions, and I had time to reflect on some of the questions you gave me, I was like, that was a critical point early in my life that helped me understand not to judge. To
Mm.
have, you know, two men that lived next door to me. I lived in a co-ed dorm that didn't value me as a woman of color and being their MRA and having this position, and over time being really close friends because we broke down those barriers. And that's through listening and having conversation, right?
Mhm.
And so I think those experiences have allowed me to not judge because I've been judged, right? And so I understand this like circle of life of sometimes it has to be hard in life so you can have deep meaning to know, if I don't like to be judged and have people make assumptions about me, when I come to someone, I have to be open to hear their story and take it in so I can truly see who they are. So I think those hard experiences as a woman of color in that university in corporate America, and then coupled with, the roles I've had, it has forced me not to judge, and then becoming an educator,
Mhm.
right? That parent is, da 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 da. And well, I don't know that because I haven't met them yet, right? We can make, because we've heard those conversations. And then to have a parent come in and just listen, they can confirm my beliefs or not confirm my beliefs, but at least I have a better story about who they are so I can make decisions about how I support their child, right?
Mm.
There's been times where I said, now that I understand where they're at, that child needs more support from me. Or
Mm.
now that I understand who they are, I need to give both support, the child and the parent at the same time. Or sometimes it's just the parent. So I think, but I could only have done that if I listened. And I think it's about having the end in mind. And the end in mind, I think in my life, and this is also modeled by my parents, I have to give them credit, is where do I want to make impact?
Mhm.
Where do I want to make impact? And I think that's the question I'm always holding, whatever role I'm playing, whether it was my education role, my human resource role, and now a coach role. How do I want to make impact? And sometimes that person now in the coaching role, they come with that question, or sometimes they think they know the question, but the impact happens when I just listen and play back to them what they're saying so they can begin to see themselves and begin to have that impact. And I'm just providing the space, the openness to hearing, the openness to hear so clearly that I can share back to them what they said so they can begin to see themselves as the way you have done for me as we're having right before we had this conversation, so they can actually grow.
Mhm.
And it's a gift. I think um, I had two parents that were givers, and not until you invited me to this reflection did I realize they modeled giving to others in their own capacity. And this is how I give. And I just really have to say it's God, right? He has continuously moved me to this place of creating this space for others to be heard and to be valued. Um, and the good news is, did that in my profession, and now I'm starting to get better at that even in my marriage. We've been married 22 years, and 22 years in October. And I think my husband would say I've gotten so much better at. It's harder with people that you love. It is, right? Because we have high expectations, and they should know me, and they shouldn't have said that. And now I'm getting so much better at um, just listening.
Mm.
So you're having a bad day. Tell me about it. Not trying to fix it. You want to fix it for your loved ones because if they're feeling better, you're feeling better. But just not fixing it, just listening. I hear you. Just saying, "Oh wow, mm-hmm, mm-hmm." And I've learned like with my clients, when I do that, he solves it for himself. So I'm continuously growing. I think I'll go to my grave still learning the nuances of listening. And you learn it by, like I said, doing it. What went well, what reflecting on it, what went well, what didn't. That question still holds true. That question didn't work with, this client or this friend or
Mm.
this family member, and just continuously refining it. And like I said, also having people misunderstand me or why I felt some way, and not understanding me or listening to me pushes me to want to listen because I know what it feels like when you're not being heard. It doesn't feel good or understood, or people think that you feel that way. That's wrong. No, that's how I feel. How can you tell me that's wrong? That's how I feel, right?
Right. Mhm.
Um, so those experiences have definitely shaped me when people don't hear me.
Mm.
Mm.
You have such great compassion.
Mm.
And what I hear is one compassion. I hear God in you when you
Mm.
speak. I feel your heart.
Mhm.
And also, you strive for excellence in yourself. And
Bad.
well, and it shows up in a way that you are constantly improving and having making your life very integrated. You know what I
Mm.
mean? In the sense that you're integrating everything you learn
Mhm.
into the way that you communicate, you how you're experiencing the world, and you're not defensive, you're
Mm.
reflective.
Mhm. Mhm.
And
Mm.
so when you as you said, it's hard with people that you love. You would think that the people that you love would be the people that you treat the best. They
Mm.
would get your best treatment, the
Yeah.
best tone of voice, the most love, the most compassion. But
Yeah.
many times we reserve that compassion for people we don't know.
Mm.
Um, So my question is, have you had a time when you were in a conflict and
Mm,
you weren't able to, you're like an angel. I'm like, how did she and you weren't able um uh to self-assess and recenter.
mhm.
How did you manage that? And what did that look like for you? Because I honestly, you're like I said, you're like an angel. I don't know how you do it.
Yeah, yeah.
Are you always this way?
Mhm. Yeah, it happened yesterday in a work meeting with colleagues where I found myself in that moment of judging. We were
Mm,
having a meeting. We were having a reflective meeting, actually. Right?
mhm,
We all were sent out to do a task. I'm a part of a committee, and we came back to report on that task. And I was the designer of the task. And so we were reflecting on the task that I designed. And but in that moment, other conversations were happening around that. And I found myself feeling a certain kind of way, and not a positive way. Like something was stirring in me. I didn't feel comfortable about what was said here. And it wasn't even about me. I didn't feel comfortable about some of the dialogues that were happening. Um, and when the call ended, I just felt like, oh, I didn't feel our group felt weird for me today. I don't feel like they felt that way, but for me, it was weird. It was
mm,
uncomfortable.
mhm,
I wasn't clear. I didn't feel connected.
mhm.
Um, and my first response was, it was them.
Yeah.
Me, right? It was my first natural human response, right?
Right.
And then I went into reflection, and I went deeper in playing back through some of the conversations and realized that there was tiredness in the room.
Mm,
There was someone who wasn't feeling well and named that towards the end. Um, there was someone who came in late and
mhm,
so kind of entered the conversation probably at a point that she changed the direction because she
mm,
thought that maybe that had happened based on the agenda. And it was in that moment that everything that I was feeling that wasn't positive shifted to, hmm, everything that you saw and experienced made sense. And there's no need for you to feel negative about it or uncomfortable about it, because when you put all the pieces together, the conversation happened that way because what people were bringing, right? And it
mm,
had
mm,
nothing to do with you. And you don't have to be offensive about it. So the next meeting, you just enter openly, right? Because I was
uh,
thinking, when I go to that next meeting, I'm gonna feel like I'm not gonna watch that person a little bit more closely, maybe not speak my mind up because it didn't feel safe.
mhm,
Realized that it didn't feel safe because people were dealing with their own struggles that had nothing to do with me or the work I put out. And so I think it comes back to reflection again and just always realizing in those listening moments that you're dealing with real humans.
mm,
Um, that to have an expectation that every listening conversation or every outcome is going to be perfect,
mhm,
um, it's not real. And so thank you for these questions because it allowed me in my reflection to say, you are always going to go into hard coaching conversations. Um, when it's about the client, those are the easier ones, right? Because I'm really transforming them. But I'm going into big conversations with colleagues and or conversations with clients where it's not a coaching call, it's more of we need to refine some things that are how from our organization. We need more from the organization. So I'm wearing my coaching hat because I'm the coach, but I'm also wearing the hat of the deliverer
mm,
and the member of the organization. And sometimes the conversation is they want us to change things. And then
mhm,
how do I show up in that space? How do I listen in a space and validate them? Because they might be saying, I want you to change your practice or do something that's maybe out of my realm. And
mm,
so I have to say to myself, okay, when you go into those really hard conversations or unexpected conversations, you don't have to respond. You can use those as opportunities to just learn and just acknowledge, hear what you're saying. That's so interesting. And or sometimes the beauty of going in not feeling defensive or feeling like you have to have the answer opens up the opportunity to clarify for them. Sometimes it's just a misunderstanding. And
Mm,
so I've been learning to give myself grace in conversations that I know that are going to be difficult to remove Sharon the person. I'm not good at this, but
mm,
I'm learning to move Sharon as the person and go in just to listen to better understand them as the person. So if within that we can begin to craft out a response if needed, either in the moment, but if you're feeling your stomach turning, to jot down that you need to reflect on this some more before you come back and respond. Um, So there's different types of listening,
mm,
right?
mhm,
And some are more difficult than others. Um, and so I think the one I just described is the one that I'm trying to refine right now.
mhm,
That one is the one that I need the most work on, because I do have passion and I do, like you said, and you see it. I'm very thoughtful in my delivery,
yes.
and so when someone's not experiencing it, then I'm like, okay, what am I doing wrong? What's missing? Right. Or, and so when I hear a client saying, not so much about me sharing, but our bigger organization, that this is, we're not, this doesn't work for us. And then being prepared to just be open to hearing. So that's a harder one. But I am working on it because it's also the more I transform, I continuously can become a better coach in different scenarios. And then I have my books, as well as other coaches. We've I have gone to trainings and stuff and just learning from others and watching
Mhm,
their practice and borrowing.
mhm,
And then I
mhm.
get coached from my colleagues. Can you coach me today? I called a colleague yesterday. I need a coach. Um, and that's like the best. A coach needs to be coached. Someone
Mm,
who listens needs to be heard.
mhm.
Um, and the more you even do that for yourself, you grow in that as well. You didn't even, that just started coming out. I'm sorry. You might
That's
even have.
great. That's perfect. I love it because, like I said, true dialogue is free flow of meaning,
Mm,
right? And
mm,
sometimes it's transformative because what you're thinking, where I'm thinking, what we're thinking as individuals, it all is put into the pool of
mm,
meaning, and a
mm.
greater meaning comes out. It's like synergistic almost.
Yes, absolutely.
And it's a good thing. It's a
Yeah.
very good thing. I love it.
Yeah.
You've said so many things. I do a lot of reading. I've been reading this book, Crucial Conversations,
Mhm. Mhm.
Tools for Talking When Stakes Are High. And you have exemplified the methodology that they lay out in their
Mhm.
book.
Mhm.
And all of the books that I've read on excellent communication. Do you read books on communication?
I Because of busyness, I haven't in a while, but
Mhm.
yes, part of the practice and organization I work for, that is one of the books that we have read. A lot of
Okay.
coaching books. I have a lot of coaching books. In fact, even if I don't have time to just sit and read a chapter anymore, if I'm thinking about a situation, I might go to a chapter that has questions that I should consider again.
Mhm.
Like I might review that. I do have some go-to books.
Mhm.
Um, that have formed me and continue to grow my practice. Yes, I do. One of my favorite coaches, I think I can call her out, is I don't, not through the organization I work for, but another organization. She was introduced to me, Eleanor Aguilar out of California, and she has a lot of books on coaching
Mhm.
um, for educators.
Mhm.
that book transformed my coaching within schools.
Right.
Um, and so, like I said, my organization, we don't use her work. We have other works that we use. But she was a game changer for me. Yeah.
Wow. Now, also, you mentioned something that stuck with me, made me think of Dr. Bronner of the
Mm,
Bronner brothers. He's a minister. uh,
hmm.
Um, I think he's Bishop Bronner.
Okay.
And he says when you are upset or you've lost center, to halt. And halt is an acronym for am I hungry? Am I
Mm-hmm.
angry? Am I feeling lonely? Am I feeling tired?
Tired. Yeah.
And you flip that to not just reflect on yourself if you're feeling those things because you said that's part of your self-care, but also in your compassion for others. When you mentioned the young lady that came into the room, that she felt a little lonely because she came in late, so she felt
Mm-hmm.
disconnected, right? And you saw that when you
Mm-hmm.
in your during your reflection. You said another person seemed like they were, upset about something. They were off slightly. So you reflected on what could be going on with the others and how those emotional states or physical states impact the direction and the climate of a room.
Yeah. 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 And the need for compassion. Yeah. I years ago, the church that my husband and I grew up in, I was a lay worship leader when I became an adult, and after I got married, I was invited to be a lay worship leader, and I loved one of my favorite roles in the church that I had. And we took cycles, like maybe once every 2 months, I read the scripture.
Hmm.
Um, and I remember we used to have meetings, and I remember the pastor saying, and I'm sure I understand where he's coming from because, as a pastor, people are coming to you all the time and emotion. I mean, I can't even imagine. I talk about needing to be a listener as a pastor, you need to be. But I remember one time he said, and this was in his humanness, of course, and no judgment at all, but it was like an aha moment for me. He said, when you're up there, reading the scripture, there's going to be people that are going to moan and groan, and don't let that distract you. Don't let their angriness or how they're feeling impact you. That's, it's not nice that they do that. And I remember saying to him in that moment, in that meeting, it's interesting that you say that because when I hear people moaning and groaning, if I'm reading the scripture, it just lets me know that they're hurting. They never
Mm,
saw it as that they were trying to disrupt my reading. I always experienced it as they are hurt, even if they are trying to disrupt my reading, which I never thought they were. At the end of the day, they're hurting. And
mm,
so, what it does is it propels me to want to go deeper. Like, as I'm messaging out to them, that I'm holding that space for them to moan.
mhm,
Um, and I thought, it's making me think like, yeah, people come up, like you said, oh, like, yeah, hungry, angry. That's real. And that's the power of being a listener is so they can have healing,
mhm,
right? Like, yeah, bone, grown. So, because that, you have to do that, right? To have the healing. And so I'm grateful that I don't take, yeah, as a human myself, yeah, sometimes I'm like, what's going on? Probably like that pastor felt like, why is this happening? But when I really center myself on that it is human, and I'm creating the space for them to heal, and that's through empathic listening. That's listening with empathy, without judgment. Um, and I'm told, didn't even wasn't even aware of it, and I guess it's something that just kind of happened in time. My tone, people's like, thank you, just your tone, just your voice has healed me. Okay,
Awesome.
didn't, just let that, I let that go for years.
Mhm.
Um, and I'm beginning to hear myself more.
You're so
Um,
graceful, Sharon.
getting
So graceful. I'm sorry, I'm cutting your train of thought. I apologize. Continue. But yeah.
no, no, no. No. It's as a coach and as someone who thrives to listen. I need to be listened to too.
Mhm.
So no, you playing back to me is like what a coach needs because we're always giving it back out. So I welcome it. I don't want you to. I didn't feel interrupted at all.
Okay.
I welcome it. It's exhausting, there's
Mhm.
no question. And so that's something that I'm reflecting on, is sustainability. Like I
Mhm.
love what I do, I see the fruits, but what do I need to start doing differently so I can sustain it?
Mhm.
And some things are obviously renewal, being
Mhm.
more thoughtful about my renewal, getting rest. Um, because it's hard to people probably don't listen because it is hard to listen. It's hard to do. It is.
There's a story going on in your head, but you're one of those, as I said in the beginning, a person that when I'm speaking with you, I'm just listening. There's no story in my head.
It takes time. Yeah.
But
There's
that's because you give it, so it's you there's something that naturally flows from you, so
Mhm.
it's easy to give it to you. There's no judgment, there's no barriers and walls in the conversation, as I said before.
Yeah.
And you have just a very calm and calming spirit,
Yeah.
and I want to hold space for you. When we talk, I want to hold space for you because I feel that you give so much compassion that you may need some
Yeah.
compassion. Just hold space, just be with her, and
Yeah.
just let her just be a girl and hang out for a minute.
Yes. That's important for people who desire to be coaches or therapists or consultants in a way that they have to listen is
Mhm.
you have to find the time to be heard.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah, I worry about you sometimes. I say, I hope she's taking care of herself. I always say, I hope she's taking care of herself. And another thing, and I'm glad that you're reflecting because I see you doing bigger things. I'm always saying that. Are you reflecting on your process? This is
Mm,
something that you can package into your own coaching package and teach others to do. You have
mm,
so much knowledge. This is
mm,
another thing. And it may be a little off topic, but I notice that people like you who are excellent
mm,
in all they do and they excel at be at striving to be the best they can be, high achievers. You're a high achiever, right?
unfortunately.
Yes, you are. You're a high achiever and it's great. Now, the thing is that high achievers don't always see their strengths as clearly, you know,
Mhm.
and maybe this is why they're always striving to be better. And I love that about you. And how do you help your clients to get a little bit of your magic sauce of striving to be better, to acknowledge where they are so
Mhm.
that they can get to where they want to go? How do you do that in your conversations?
Yeah. I one is celebrations,
Hmm.
right? We have to celebrate. Like every coaching call has to include celebrations. And this is something that I've just learned in my organization now. Like, that's something that we do as a practice, and I'm seeing the fruits of it. And I had a client yesterday reflecting on the pandemic, and, we didn't do well this year, Sharon. We didn't get the job done.
Mm.
And I was able to reflect back to him and saying, you didn't get the job done the way you did last year, but you still continue to give best practices that supported your school community. And even though it wasn't in the framework that we suggest, you still did it. Did it in your own framework and still got great results. And it was in that moment that he was like, we still did great things. Yes, you did. You did. You may not have done like we have this list of things to do, but that's the beauty of it. You know what your community needs.
Right, right.
You move forward. So now you don't even have to say we went through that list. You can say now we have our own list to add to that list.
Yes.
So I think it's constantly reflecting back their truth to them and how
Hmm.
they show up. Um, because I think through this pandemic and social injustice and all that's going on, we all can see what was wrong, it was hard, and what was difficult. And so it's been really wonderful. And actually, in these last couple of weeks, a lot of coaching sessions I have, and some of them have been, I know this sounds weird, but all day coaching sessions. And it's like
Hmm.
that was the hardest one I did this year where it's been like about renewal.
Mm.
We've done sessions that are all day of renewal, but creating the space where the whole community can come together and have dialogue and discussions and private reflections and reflect back out to each other and just creating that space, have fun for that to happen through a whole day on Zoom. Um, and it's in those moments of celebration and connections and reflections that they begin to see it in themselves. I don't know. Did I answer your question?
You certainly did. You certainly did. I have one more question um, for you. Now, as how do you get fed? When
Mm,
someone is so greatly compassionate, what do
mhm,
you do and where do you go to be refilled, to have your cup? Your cup is already overflowing with compassion.
mm.
But how do you refill so that you don't feel depleted?
Working on that.
Hmm.
So thank you for the question. Working on
Hmm.
that. Not at the place that I desire to be, but stopping,
Hmm.
just literally just stopping, like saying it is okay to do nothing today.
Hmm.
Not a strength of mine, um, but a new awareness of mine, like a
Okay.
deeper awareness. And so I said to my husband last night, stopping this weekend. Like I might do a couple of small things, but that are renewal based.
Mm.
But being really thoughtful about that I need to stop, that I can't keep going. Reading books, I want to do more because I read so much for work. I don't get to read for pleasure. I have a plan that I mapped out to make sure that I read. I'm not doing well with my plan. I need to revise my plan. I'm not
Mhm.
giving up on my plan. That's one
Right,
thing.
right.
Don't give up on your plan. Sometimes we put a plan and say, I'm not getting it done, and we just say it's never going to work. No, 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 no. I have a plan, it's not working, and you go back to the plan. Where in the plan do I need to make adjustments? So constantly revisiting my plan to refine because this is something that I want to do. And if it's not working, that just means steps I'm taking aren't right. Are the
Mhm,
expectations are too high? I might have to minimize them a little bit and maybe go slower.
mhm.
So reflection, um, and then getting better at saying no. I'm not good at that. I'm such a giver, but I've had to say no a couple of times. Sorry, that day's not available. Sorry, I just can't do that today. Um, just saying, just requesting things from my husband. I really need you to cook today. Like,
Mm,
I mean,
mm.
some days I'm like, he's like, but I don't know how to cook that. Well, then I guess we won't be eating that today. Good night. Like really just saying I can't. And my
Right.
husband, because of that, has become an amazing cook. He would say,
Wow.
I couldn't cook, and now he tells me what to do. So when we do start making those changes, not only do we benefit ourselves, but you know what? We benefit others too. And so I'm learning that slowly but surely. I'm getting there, saying no, not good,
Yeah.
but I'm working on it.
I love that. Now, I thank you for giving the gift of compassion and
Mm,
exemplifying. Well, there's a scripture that Jesus asked, well, the first the biggest commandment is to love thy God with all your heart, all your strength, all your might, something along those lines, right? And the second is like the first,
Mhm.
to love your neighbor as yourself. And throughout this conversation, you have really exemplified that as your, it's been the thread to me. I've heard that thread that first of all, I'm giving love, right? I'm loving, and that love comes from God, right?
Yeah.
And I'm loving my neighbor as I love myself. The
Yeah.
more I love myself, the love I want to receive, I'm giving.
Yeah.
And and I honor my own boundaries.
Mm.
That's what I heard from the last when you talked about that. You created boundaries for yourself.
Working on that. Yeah.
Yes, yeah,
That's my new journey. Mhm.
yeah. And because that's also self-care, right? Um, honoring your calendar and your
Mhm.
planner, that's
Mhm.
self-care, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
Um, and that we can only love others to the degree that we love ourselves.
Yeah. Exactly.
So when we love, sometimes people love their neighbors. We say, this person's not loving. Well, the scripture says, love your neighbor as you love yourself. If you don't love yourself well, that's how it's going to show up.
Yeah.
With the better, the way you love yourself is the way you're going to love others. And you mentioned that, and that, okay, this, now I understand why this person, this child may need more support. I've met the parent, we've had a discussion. The child may need more support in this way. The parent may need support. Your client may need more support because you're acknowledging and paying attention to the ways in which they love themselves and how that shows up in their work, in their life, in
Yeah.
all the arenas that
Yeah.
we. And the third thing I heard from you is integration, being an integrated human. We talk about work life balance, but what I'm hearing is that you're trying to just be integrated, that your life is your life. All the
Mhm.
parts
Mhm.
matter and they impact one another.
Yeah.
So the
Yeah.
way you, yeah. So
Yeah.
being integrated, trying to balance it doesn't really work as well as being integrated. So you show up as yourself in all the arenas and comfortably as yourself and with
Yeah.
self-care practices, compassion, grace,
Mhm.
empathy, and intention.
Yeah.
And I don't, like I said, you have the magic sauce. Uh,
Mm.
you do. It's special. It's special. And I appreciate you for spending time with us today. And when you write your book and you create your courses,
You'll be there for me.
yes, yes, we're going to get that out to the world because you have a gift and people are waiting for that gift to show up in the world.
Mm.
Sharon, you're already giving your gift, but on a next level that doesn't de- that that's the next level for you. I'm speaking that into your life, your
Mhm.
God-inspired idea that is waiting for you. That's your
Mhm.
$1 million, multi-million dollar idea and
Wow.
legacy.
Wow.
I look forward
That
to seeing it.
Wow, thank you for putting that in my spirit, in my heart and soul. And I will be praying on that. I will be reflecting on your words of wisdom and
Mhm.
seeking to understand that. So thank you.
You're
Appreciate that.
welcome. And I thank you for always just being just love and light and really being uh, an example of God in life. Now, as you know, I'm a Christian, and
Mhm,
but I've also been influenced by other things. So, and listening to you, I hear that scripture: love God,
mhm, mhm,
love people, and love yourself. Right?
mhm, mhm, mhm,
Those also, I think it's, but not I think I know it's the Taoist tradition. In the Taoist tradition, it says to go with the flow, right?
mhm.
Don't resist. Just be in the moment and separate your spirit basically from your flesh, basically.
Mhm.
Take your consciousness, your awareness, take it outside of your body and almost let it be like the overlord watching what's going on. And that's what I hear from your reflection, that your spirit is watching what's
Mhm.
going on with yourself, what's going
Mhm.
on in the environment, what's going on in others. And it's just a beautiful thing. I'm just so thankful for you, Sharon. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you for
Mm.
sharing with me. And I don't know, how can people reach out to you? If they I just feel like you just have something to offer.
Wow. I haven't thought about that. You're already setting me up for next steps. Listen to you. I appreciate that. You've already set me up for next steps. Um, can we yeah, I would love watch this move I'm getting ready to make. I would love some coaching from you on how I can create a system, right,
Mhm.
that would work. Because I could easily say, my heart would say, give them my phone number, give them my email address. But I
Right.
know, like, if people are interested, and I wouldn't have the capacity, like, in this moment to respond, but I
Mhm.
do value the opportunity to think through that some more,
Mhm.
to create that space and time where, yeah, you're playing back to me, like you're giving me what I like give to others, like on a daily basis, and so you're giving me, like, helping me make some connections to what could this look like, in terms of helping supporting others and guiding and leading. So I don't have an answer, but I want to get an answer.
Yeah.
So thanks for prompting me. Thanks for
You're
prompting.
welcome. You're welcome. You said the questions. That's the thing. You ask questions. I heard that also in this dialogue, that you're always asking the questions to yourself
Mm.
and of others.
Yeah,
So yeah, yeah.
that
I learned that from you and Lorraine too. Asking questions.
yes, my great buddy that introduced us, right?
Yes,
Like,
yes. That's my big sister.
yeah, mine too. She was a great coach as well. Yeah, we were
Yes,
together and we learned from each other. Yep,
yes.
still learning
Mhm.
from each other.
Yes. So
Yeah.
so again, I thank you, Sharon, and we're going to be looking out for uh, maybe a list of your
Mm,
um your top your top tips for centering, recentering, and listening with compassion.
okay, I'm writing those words down.
Yes. So by the time this airs, we'll have it for uh, as an offering.
Mm, I love it. I love it. I love you speaking like the future into me. Yes, I love it.
So thank you, Sharon.